I've always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Melissa. Growing up, she was the golden child, beautiful, popular, and seemingly perfect in our parents' eyes. I was the quiet, bookish one who never quite lived up to her standards. Despite this, I tried to maintain a relationship with her, especially after she had kids. I adored my nieces and nephews, even if their mothers sometimes drove me crazy. Melissa married young to Richard, a successful businessman who traveled frequently. They quickly had 5 children, twins Emma and Ethan, 10, Sophia, 8, Lucas, 6, and little Olivia, 4. While they projected the image of a perfect family on social media, I knew the reality was different. Melissa often complained about being overwhelmed and how parenthood wasn't what she expected. Still, I never imagined she would do what she did. Last summer, Melissa called me about a family emergency meeting at a local park. She sounded distressed, claiming she needed everyone's help with a crisis. Being the reliable aunt, I agreed without hesitation. When I arrived at the park that Saturday morning, I found only my 5 nieces and nephews sitting on a bench with small backpacks. No Melissa, no Richard, no other family members. The kids looked confused but not overly concerned. They'd been told I was taking them for a weekend sleepover while Mommy and Daddy handled important business. Aunt Jackie, Olivia ran to me, wrapping her tiny arms around my legs. Mommy said you're going to make us pancakes tomorrow. My heart sank as I checked my phone and saw an email from Melissa that had arrived just minutes before. Asterisk, Jackie, Richard and I desperately need a break. We're heading to Hawaii for 2 weeks. The kids' stuff is packed in those backpacks, and there's $300 cash in Ethan's front pocket for expenses. You're always saying you love spending time with them, so here's your chance. We'll be back on the 15th. Don't try to contact us. We're turning off our phones. You're the best sister ever. Zoxo asterisk. I stood there in shock, reading and rereading the message while the kids played nearby, oblivious to the fact they'd just been abandoned. My hands trembled with a mixture of rage and disbelief. 2 weeks? Hawaii? And only $300 for 5 growing children? I tried calling both Melissa and Richard immediately. Both phones went straight to voicemail. I checked their social media and saw Melissa had just posted a selfie of them at the airport with champagne glasses, captioned, "Surprise getaway with my love. Hashtag no kids allowed. Hashtag finally free." That's when I realized this wasn't some kind of bizarre joke. My sister and her husband had literally abandoned their 5 children with barely any warning or resources, and were celebrating it publicly. I took a deep breath, put on a brave face for the kids, and made a decision that would change all our lives forever. I took the kids back to my modest 2-bedroom apartment. They were excited at first, thinking this was a fun adventure with Aunt Jackie. I didn't have the heart to tell them the truth yet, so I played along while frantically trying to figure out what to do. My apartment wasn't equipped for 5 children. I had no car seats, no extra beds, not nearly enough food. The $300 Melissa left wouldn't cover even the basics for 2 weeks. I called in sick to my job for Monday, knowing I'd need time to sort this mess out. That night, after making a fort of blankets in the living room where the kids could sleep, I placed a call to my parents. They were traveling through Europe and couldn't return early, but they were as shocked as I was. She's always been impulsive, but this is beyond anything we could have imagined, my mother said, her voice cracking. By Monday morning, reality had set in. The twins kept asking when their parents would return. Sophia had wet the bed twice from anxiety. Lucas had barely spoken since we arrived at my apartment. Only little Olivia seemed blissfully unaware, happy to be with her beloved aunt. I called my employer and explained the situation. They were understanding, but made it clear I couldn't take 2 weeks off without warning. I'd have to work remotely when possible and use my limited vacation days for the rest. Next, I called a family lawyer friend for advice. Her response was immediate. "This is child abandonment, Jackie. You need to call Child Protective Services." The thought made my stomach turn. Despite everything, these were my nieces and nephews. I love them. But my friend's next words hit hard. What happens when they come back and take the kids, then do this again? Or worse, you need to document this legally. With shaking hands, I made the call to CPS. The caseworker, Ms. Rodriguez, arrived that afternoon. She interviewed me privately, then spoke gently with each child. She examined the email, the social media posts, and the meager supplies Melissa had packed. "We appreciate you stepping up," Ms. Rodriguez told me. "But you're right to be concerned. This isn't a simple babysitting request. This is abandonment. Would you be willing to keep the children temporarily while we investigate?" I agreed without hesitation. The next day, I appeared before a judge who granted me emergency temporary guardianship. I enrolled the kids in schools near my apartment and rearranged my entire life to accommodate them. My coworkers donated clothes, toys, and even a bunk bed. My neighbor, a retired teacher, helped watch the younger ones when I had to work. Days passed. Melissa and Richard's social media showed them snorkeling, drinking at luau's, relaxing on beaches, all without a single mention of their children. Then, on day 12, everything changed. My phone rang at 3 a.m. It was Richard, his voice panicked. "Jackie, we need the kids back. Now. We're coming home tomorrow." "What happened to 2 weeks? And Hawaii?" I asked coldly. "We're in San Francisco, not Hawaii." That was just. Look, Melissa had a breakdown or something. She's been drinking nonstop, saying she misses the kids. We need to come get them as soon as we land. I gripped the phone tightly. That's not how this works anymore, Richard. You can't just abandon your children and then demand them back when vacation gets boring. Abandon? We left them with family. We just needed a break. You left 5 children with $300 and no warning. CPS is involved now. There's a court order. The line went silent for a moment before Richard exploded. You called CPS on us? Your own sister? How could you? I hung up, hands trembling but resolve strengthened. The next morning, I contacted Ms. Rodriguez and my lawyer. They assured me that Richard and Melissa couldn't simply take the children back. There would be a hearing first. The next afternoon, I received word that Melissa and Richard had landed. Rather than facing the situation directly, I arranged for Ms. Rodriguez and a police officer to meet them at the airport. I stayed home with the kids, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy while my stomach twisted into knots. I later learned what happened at that airport confrontation. According to Ms. Rodriguez, Melissa and Richard strode through the terminal looking tanned and refreshed until they spotted the CPS worker and police officer holding signs with their names. The color drained from their faces as reality crashed down on them. "Where are our children?" Melissa had demanded, her voice rising hysterically. "What have you done with them?" The officer calmly explained the situation, that they were being investigated for child abandonment, that a court had granted me temporary guardianship, and that they would need to appear before a judge before having any contact with their children. Richard, always concerned with appearances, had tried to hustle them into a private area, but the damage was done. Fellow travelers were already staring, some recording with their phones as Melissa collapsed onto an airport bench, sobbing dramatically. "You don't understand," she'd wailed. "I was having a nervous breakdown. I needed time to clear my head. I trusted my sister to take care of them for a little while." My phone buzzed constantly that evening with messages from Melissa, ranging from pleading to threatening. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I focused on helping the twins with their math homework and reading Olivia her bedtime story. The court hearing 3 days later was one of the most difficult experiences of my life. I sat on one side of the courtroom with my lawyer, while Melissa and Richard sat on the other with theirs. Melissa looked terrible, her designer clothes hanging loosely on her frame, dark circles under her eyes. For the first time, I felt a pang of sympathy, quickly smothered by memories of the past 2 weeks. Their lawyer painted a picture of overwhelmed parents who made a regrettable but understandable mistake, emphasizing their otherwise spotless record as caregivers. My lawyer presented the email, social media posts, and reports from the children's schools about concerning behaviors they'd noticed even before the abandonment. The judge was not impressed with Melissa and Richard's explanation. "Parenthood is not something you can take a vacation from," she said sternly. "The court finds your actions demonstrate a shocking lack of judgment and responsibility." The ruling was not what anyone expected. The children would remain in my custody for 3 months while Melissa and Richard completed parenting classes, therapy, and supervised visitation. After that, there would be another hearing to determine permanent custody arrangements. Outside the courtroom, Melissa finally confronted me directly. "You've ruined everything," she hissed, tears streaming down her face. We were only gone for 12 days. 12 days after 10 years of nonstop parenting. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw someone I barely recognized anymore. "It wasn't about the 12 days, Melissa. It was about the way you did it. You abandoned them with no warning, no proper arrangements. You treated your children like they were burdens you could just drop off somewhere." "I was drowning," she whispered, her anger deflating. "But I never thought I'd lose them." 6 months have passed since that day. The kids are still with me, though Melissa and Richard now have extended visitation rights. They've completed all the court-ordered programs and seem genuinely committed to rebuilding their relationship with their children. Melissa has been diagnosed with depression and is on medication. Richard has reduced his work travel significantly. As for me, I've moved into a larger apartment, and my parents have relocated to be nearby and help with childcare. The kids are thriving in their new schools, and we've established a routine that works for everyone. Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing calling CPS that day. But then I remember the look on Melissa's face when she returned, not just regret for the consequences, but the dawning realization of what she had almost thrown away. Sometimes it takes losing something to understand its true value. Melissa is learning that lesson the hard way, but at least she's learning it. And the children know now that no matter what happens, they will always have someone who puts them first.